Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining. I want to take a couple of minutes to do a little bit of a comparison between physical music media formats, really kind of sparked by a resurgence in vinyl and a little bit of a collecting phase that I went through with vinyl that kind of has led me to exploring most of the major physical music formats. And really, I think coming to a conclusion on which one is best for modern day life and why I think there's a compelling case for that format over the others, as well as over streaming. A little bit of kind of background is, vinyl has seen really a renaissance over the last decade. It's really picked up steam in the last 5 to 7 years, and I would say it's probably nearing its peak in terms of popularity. Physical media, as it relates to music, has really, as vinyl has kind of peaked in popularity, again, I think physical music media has really kind of re-entered the cultural zeitgeist and the dialogue. And this has sparked a variety of different conversations, some of which converge. Regarding vinyl specifically, one kind of sect within this conversation is kind of what I'll call like the audiophiles' ideals and ideas, which kind of espouse that vinyl is making a return, or should make a return, due primarily to the sound quality and essentially the superiority of the listening experience. Maybe a little bit more on the trendier side is kind of in this, 2025 now, late 2025, entering 2026, is kind of the broader concept of physical media, ownership, digital minimalism, and kind of how, physical media, and in this particular case, vinyl, allows you to build a catalog of music you own, and you're not necessarily beholden to a streaming service or to the internet to access that music. I do think that vinyl is a great format. It has a great tactile aspect to it, whereby the listener can experience the physicality in a much more holistic way than with other physical formats. Vinyl is something that you can see. It's something you can feel. It is large. It has, all over artwork printed on it, on your cases or sheaths, and often very detailed, really kind of interesting artwork as well. This particular album that I pulled out for this video is Seek and Destroy by Anthrax, which is a bit of a live recording kind of European bootleg with a couple of different Metallica covers on it, but it has really unique album artwork on it. And it's really cool to see, to feel, and to hold. In addition to that, there's kind of this ritualistic physical aspect to vinyl, where you remove that disc from the case. There's kind of potentially cleaning of the disc, placing of the needle. There's audible aspects of your player, hearing the pieces work as your needle shifts into place. The visual experience. Vinyl is much more visual than other music formats, whereby you are able to see the actual disc spinning and watch the needle progress as you listen. In addition to that, there's also a recurring need to interact. With vinyl, you play side one, and then you have to go back to your player. You have to go back to your disc, and you have to manipulate it. You have to flip it over. You have to kind of restart the process. So it's a very engaging, ritualistic kind of process, whereby there are these active steps. You have to take an active role in listening to an album like Seek and Destroy by Anthrax. I believe that each of these interactions really amp up the user's experience physically. You pair these necessary physical components to actually utilize the media with a level of inconvenience that is, the setup, flipping through albums to choose one, along with those forced interactions with the album physically and the album art. I do think that, vinyl does make a compelling case as the kind of ultimate form of physical music in terms of intimate user experience and interaction. You simply cannot listen to an album on vinyl without having a 14 to 16 inch kind of sleeve in your hands, reading it, interacting with it multiple times. It's just part of the experience. And I think that's compelling, and I do think that's enjoyable. However, there's kind of some Achilles heels to vinyl as well. Vinyl requires more physical infrastructure than other physical music formats. There's multiple layers of physical infrastructure required, and perhaps most damningly, vinyl cannot easily be transported or played on the go. Ultimately, you can't reliably or reasonably expect vinyl to replace your streaming subscription, for example, in part that if I'm out on a walk, this can't go with me. There's no way to use this while I'm out on a walk. Like I can carry the case, I can have the disc in the sleeve and admire it. However, listening to it is essentially impossible while on the move if I'm not in a fixed location with a power supply and the rest of the physical infrastructure required. The second big challenge with vinyl is the catalog. Vinyl is old school. By the 90s, vinyl was fading. Its comeback really has been in the last 10 years. And a lot of those releases, even in the last 10 years, were not standard releases. Those were special issue. Those were for fan clubs. It's not like everybody in 2015 just started releasing albums on vinyl again. So fading by the 90s, resurgence in 2015 kind of as a specialty means that you have a 20 to 30 year gap in your catalog of availability that is essentially the most popular music and most of that is not available on vinyl, or at the very least is not accessible on vinyl. For example, you can listen to Alice in Chains on vinyl. However, first pressing Alice in Chains albums are exceptionally rare. They're quite expensive. And if you are looking to listen to a lot of, B, C, D, E tier grunge bands, vinyl is not going to be a conducive format to finding, Mudhoney, Mother Love Bone, Sweetwater, Morphine, whomever else it might be. And that's a little bit of a bummer, I think, that really, in my eyes, puts a nail in the coffin of vinyl as more than kind of a novelty. That's a significant problem. A large hole in the catalog combined with a significant monetary premium attached to what is available from this time frame really, to me, leaves vinyl as niche at best. It's something that's really cool, it's enjoyable, but it's not going to replace our music experience. To my mind, that is where the CD enters the picture. The CD burst onto the scene in the early 80s, 1981, if I'm not mistaken. And according to the world's foremost repository on all of human knowledge, Wikipedia, and it surpassed all other formats as the dominant physical medium by 1991. By the year 2000, the CD accounted for over 92% of the US market share for physical music media. That's substantial. What that means in practice is that from the early 1980s until really even today, virtually all music has been released on CD. In addition, the back catalog of music that has been transposed onto CD is almost unfathomable, to the tunes of hundreds of billions of units sold and millions of unique albums. While you might have a challenge finding, for example, a first pressing copy of Dirt by Alice in Chains on vinyl, Dirt, 1992, Alice in Chains' masterpiece, is essentially in every single Goodwill from Detroit, Michigan to, Reno, Nevada, for $1. it is so accessible, it's almost overwhelming. CDs bring some things to the table that are not entirely unlike vinyl. They do have a physical experience. Again, if I want to listen to this Candlebox album, for example, I have to hold it, I have to pick this case up, I have to open it, I have to interact with it. Though it's a much less ritualistic and a much less kind of intimate physical experience. Much like vinyl, CDs offer a true or truer level of ownership than streaming. With this copy of Happy Pills by Candlebox, for example, I can burn this onto as many blank CDs as I care to, and if for some reason I really wanted to, I could stuff them in my neighbors' mailboxes, I could give them to friends. I can load this into the hard drive or into the disk drive on my computer, and I can rip this onto any MP3 player that's essentially ever been made. If you have an old iPod, I can put Happy Pills by Candlebox on there. If you have a Zune, I can put Happy Pills on there. Or if you have one of these, a cheapo Amazon MP3 player, that also has Happy Pills on it. Where CDs really shine, though, is in that they converge accessibility, price, physicality, transportability, and the ability to integrate into modern life, in addition to an unbelievable catalog. The overarching value with CDs is a combination of these elements, and I thoroughly believe that when you evaluate those elements, the CD significantly outperforms vinyl. If you are looking to cut your streaming service, pick one physical music, physical media format to purchase all of your most favorite albums on, I would argue it should be CD all the way. You can have an old iPod, Zune, or that MP3 player shown earlier for the price of 1 to 2 months of your streaming service, or the price of one vinyl album, and with your 25 cent to $1 CDs from Goodwill or garage sales, you essentially now have a limitless catalog. The overarching value with CDs is really the combination of all of these elements. It's that convergence piece. CDs converge accessibility, price, physicality, transportability, and the ability to integrate into modern life in a way that vinyl just can't. In addition to those things, CDs have an enormous catalog, almost unfathomable. If you are looking to cut your streaming service, or you just want to collect all of your favorite albums physically, but aren't sure what format or which format is best, I would argue that CDs are hands down the correct choice. You pair a CD with an old iPod that you might still have, a Zune MP3 player, or any other MP3 player, modern manufacturer off of Amazon, and your CDs, you can have that set up essentially for the price of 1 to 2 months of a streaming service or one vinyl album. A vinyl album can fetch $30 to $50. Used CDs can be had for 25 cents at Goodwill and garage sales, $3, $5, $10 on eBay for specific albums you might be looking for, or in a way that vinyl and cassettes will never be able to compete with, free from your local library. CDs are in ample supply in almost every single library in the United States, and I live in Michigan, which means I have access to the MelCat, which is the Michigan e-library catalog. And what that really means is that my library can order for free any item from any library in Michigan, specifically CDs. I have checked out hundreds of CDs from my local library, who has maybe 60 in their actual collection, including titles like Making a Door Less Open here by Car Seat Headrest, which I currently have checked out so that I can pop this into my disk drive on my computer and download it or rip it right onto my MP3 player. I have essentially limitless options this way. There are very few holes in the catalog through MelCat, and very few holes in the catalog of CDs in general. I don't think you can argue against the CD in any reasonable way. Thanks for tuning in. Hope that was mildly interesting to you. I would be really curious to hear whether you use CDs, cassettes, vinyl, if maybe you still stream. I don't. I, in fact, listen to all of my music on vinyl, cassette, or CD, primarily CD through use of my MP3 player here that I purchased for, I think, maybe $20 online. So let me know. Thanks.